Nigeria's inflation rate increased to 33.2% for the month of March 2024, according to latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS. Now, this represents 1.5% points increase from the 31.7% recorded in February of 2024. The increase in the inflation rate in March was slower compared to the 1.80% recorded in February of 2024.
Now, on a year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate increased by 11.16% from 20.04% in March 2023. Additionally, the headline inflation rate for March 2024 was 3.02%, a decrease of 0.1% from February 2024, when it was 3.12%. Now, despite the Central Bank of Nigeria's bold strategies to combat inflation head-on, the recent inflation rate is a record high for Nigeria, reaching unprecedented heights and amidst soaring prices of goods, food, services, commodities, and economic uncertainty. Is this a sign of bleak and doom, or is there hope? Well,
yes, indeed. Now, joining us to help make sense of the recent rates and also help us answer these questions, we're joined by Ifeanyi J. Ubah, is the Head Investment Research, Commercio Partners. And also joining us in the studio is Olabode Peter Afolayan. He is a trader, MD at PILS Ltd, or better yet, an entrepreneur, and he joins us live in the studio. Can I just say, Olabode, you really look like an entrepreneur. You're the big man here.
All right, gentlemen, so first off, let's ask, Ifeanyi, please, give us an interpretation of the numbers that we've just reeled out here. Let's know what the inflation, especially from last month, the inflation rates and all.
For having me.
You're welcome.
Nigeria is definitely struggling from galloping inflation. Our numbers definitely would raise an eyebrow, but there's hope. And like you rightly said, the pace of inflation has slowed down. And aside from the pace of inflation, we saw that the month-on-month inflation actually decreased. So it's less expensive to buy goods compared to last month. And this might somewhat seem because of the central bank's hawkish policies. Central banks in different ways have tried to mop up money circulation, and he also increased the interest rate by almost like 600 basis points. So that is to try and curb up the money circulation. But regardless, we are still struggling with double digits inflation. So one might worry, but I feel it's not over yet.
Now, but you say that the prices are coming down as against last month. Nigeria is a very antitypical type of country. How long more will we until we actually get to experience that price drop?
I would say, and the
entrepreneur. Thank you very much, Olabode.
Because I noticed when he said that, the prices will somewhat reflect, he kind of made a reaction to that. So let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so it's actually most of this can be well, everything you have here was transported here and all of that. But like you said, the CBN's policies and all that they've been doing has tried to rein in the galloping inflation. And with time, it's not going to be an immediate thing. With time, you're going to see inflation start receding. Also, you have the issue of FX. If you look at the rates as well, that has been going down.
Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a very short break. When we get back, we'll still be joined by these gentlemen as we talk about the inflation rates here in Nigeria and what might come this week.
You're watching Breakfast Extra. Let's come back to the conversation, and this time on Nigeria's economy and the inflation rate, which has now reached a 28-year high at 33.2%. Now we're joined in the studio by Ifeanyi J. Ubah. He is the head of research at Commercio Partners, as well as Olabode Afolayan. He is an entrepreneur and he's live with us in the studio. Now, earlier on during our conversation,
I wanted to say something about that. The best part of the show just went by. You guys didn't see it because Judith almost killed this guy here because she was so enthusiastic about her. What was it the question we asked that went on until after?
Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Do you believe it?
Let's ask that again.
The answer is no.
You're very passionate. Let's ask that
again.
Yeah,
so the question we're asking, right, we're going to get to that because we need to give context, right? Hang on. So we need to give context. And we're talking about whether or not the market and the prices will return back, or if we're seeing signs of it returning back. And Olabode, who's an entrepreneur, says yes. But to sort of get context, right? Ifeanyi, what are the contributing factors to the hike in the rates that we're seeing?
About the Nigerian inflation,
Yes.
right? So the major contributing factors is like food, which is at 40%. Then we also have transportation, which contributes majorly to food and energy. So those three clusters are what are majorly causing the downturn in inflation. And those three are kind of also influenced by exchange rate factors too. So we also have imported inflation coming to the mix and say, don't count me out.
Right. So now we have that, right? These are the numbers we're looking at. Food is part of it. The CBN has done, we've seen their efforts that they've been making relentlessly to try to make the inflation come down. Will there be any implications for the economy? And this question is directed to the both of you because I see Olabode's body language. But let me start with you, Ifeanyi.
Okay.
All the efforts they've been making to try to battle it, to bring it down.
Yeah, so inflation is a sticky problem, and this is something that has gone down years. And John Maynard Keynes have written a lot about this in terms of sticky prices and wages. So when you're trying to bring prices down, it's very difficult, but trying to get it up, just by rumors, you see people hiking rates. It's very easy to bring prices up. But
and hoarding as well that we saw late last year and early this year as well.
Exactly. But the market is self-correcting. You know, once prices actually settle and the market is being overpriced by people in the market, you know, we have market forces correct themselves and prices come down. I'm sure the trader will be able to explain more on that.
Yes,
but what it actually means is that once you go out and your cost of production is low, you will need to sell it low to be more competitive. If you're still selling it high, you get crowded out.
Olabode.
Yeah, it's actually right. Like I was saying
before the
you
assault.
see,
Not do that.
but go on. So it takes a bit of time for you to see the impact of some of the policies that the CBN has rolled out. For example, with the FX rates that have come down, you have people that have imported items when rates were still almost as high as 2,000 naira. They will need to sell off the old stock and then buy new one at the new rates. Also, the customs rates has also gone down. So which means that things like import duty that is being paid on all those items too would come down. So with time, you'd see the impact of that because that's what you call the imported inflation. Also with the refinery, the Dangote refinery that has come on board as well, at least the transportation cost, haulage cost, insurance, freight cost for imported fuel, you have all those costs, you know, excluded now from petrol that we'll be using in Nigeria. So I expect price of petrol with time, not immediately, might actually also come down, especially when FX rates go below 8,000 to the dollar.
So I asked a very interesting question while we were on break. And my question was, save the FX, remove the FX from the indices, from the equation here. Where would Nigeria's inflation rate be without the inclusion of the FX?
So definitely it won't be this high.
It won't be this high. Currently 33%. Give or take. What do you guys think?
So if we look at last year's rates before subsidy removal and before FX went above 1,000 naira, we're at about 20-something percent.
Yeah.
So at least you can be sure that we should be able to get back to that point.
Now, in furtherance to that, do people have an idea of the situation Nigeria is in when it comes to inflation? We just bandied this about and say inflation at 33%. People don't have an idea. Let's compare. Let's compare to America, for instance. Let's compare to Ghana. What is the American situation and how are they handling it? Ifeanyi.
Well, you see, like Nigeria and the American economy are wide apart. To make that comparison is very difficult. But inflation is a common phenomenon everywhere.
But what's their figure in America?
It's hovering around 3%.
3%. Yeah. How are they handling it? Are they like calm, like, okay, we're good?
No, like definitely not calm.
They're running helter-skelter.
Taking measures to try and bring it down to their 2% region.
Now we're at 33%. How are we managing all of that? And Ghana is at what? Less than 33%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so like when you're dealing with Nigeria, you have to talk about structure. You asked an important question. What would Nigerian inflation look like without FX problems? So if you're trying to answer that question, you have to break it down. So what does it mean for Nigeria not to have FX problems? It means that our exports will definitely exceed our imports. That means Nigeria will change from what we see now to an exporting country. In that kind of analogy, I see our inflation coming down to single digits, because that means we have essentially changed the structure. Remember, what the CBN is trying to do is, you know what they say, I think it was Milton Friedman that gave this illustration on inflation. Say inflation is like alcoholism, you know? If you take little alcohol, it's fun because it gets the economy moving. So there's an incentive to take more, but taking more is where there's a problem. And you have the side effects of taking too much alcohol. But the solution is also daring too. The solution is stop taking the alcohol. But how do you feel when you stop taking the alcohol? There's a little strife, there's a little discomfort. And that's what Nigerians are facing now. But after this discomfort, there'll be smiles.
But numbers don't lie. You know, this rate is a record high for the country on all frontiers. What can be done to curtail the inflation? Or better yet, are we doing enough to curtail the inflation?
Yeah, so since we drew parallels from the United States economy, one thing that came to mind is Paul Volcker. United States were dealing with similarly high inflation, not as galloping as ours, but the highest it has ever been in 1970. And what happened was that the Apex Bank president came in, which was Paul Volcker, and instituted somewhat similar measures that the CBN is instituting, which is aggressive rate hike. But it actually had to slow down the economy. The economic growth in America actually slowed down, and it was attributed to this aggressive rate hike. Although people shunned him that time, he's still hailed as a hero because the United States have not reached that level of inflation. So what can be done is what the Apex Bank is doing. So I just feel they should fasten up their seatbelts.
Olabode, do you have anything to add? I mean, you're in the market, you understand what the markets
You're the typical
are.
example.
You're the typical example. The policies they're making, are they doing enough?
Yes, they are. I think one other thing that we can add to what he said is the issue of security. You see, the food inflation itself has really gone haywire because of the security situation around the middle belt of the country, which is the food basket of the nation. And it's not like it's this dispensation issue or last dispensation issue. We've been having this insurgency crisis coming from the northeast, and it spread all the way down. In fact, they got to Abuja at some point, you know, with their issues, but it's really distorted our food, you know, sector. That's why you have the food inflation itself so high. So the issue of security really needs to be, you know, put on front burner for this government. Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, you should know because you're out there. So, I mean, I'm wondering if that naira, if that dollar naira instance is evident in your trade. Have you seen that?
When you say in
are you beginning to feel the effect of the gain of the naira?
So I trade global markets, so I'm not really.
Okay.
There we are. Like I said, he's a big man. I've always said you are a big man indeed. Looking ahead, my final question. Looking ahead, what are the expectations or forecast for Nigeria's inflation rate in the coming month? Do we see these numbers going even higher? Would they drop at least by 1.1%?
Well, it's really hard to give a very short-term forecast because the market dynamics are very volatile. But what I can tell you is that on the long run, if the CBN continues maintaining the contractionary measures and strengthening the transmission mechanism, we could see inflation go back to 20-something% by the end of the year. I think IMF also has that same prediction. So I'm in line with the IMF prediction as well.
Right. Well, Ifeanyi, many thanks for coming on, and also to you, Olabode.
Thank you very much.
For coming on.
It was a grand conversation, even after or before we came on. That was good. Thank you very much.